What's going on, everyone? I'm Encore. This is Tomorrow Never Comes, and today's video I am going to try something a little new. We're going to call it Whiteboard Wednesdays. So let's get right into it. And there are two concepts that I actually want to go over on the whiteboard. Let's get into it. So we're actually going to use Canva. I'm going to be completely honest with you. This will be the first time I use this. I mean, I've used it a couple of times before, but on video anyway. So let's see how this kind of plays out. So I'm gonna make myself go over here, and there are a couple things that I want to talk about. Two real things here. And the whole goal of my channel here and the content that I put out is really, I understand that you may be a busy professional or busy at work or just busy in general, and the gap between where you are and coming into crypto is quite a big gap. It was for me, it was for anyone that I know. Usually what it takes to tackle that space is hours and hours of YouTube, Twitter, books, articles, whatever it is. Really immerse yourself in the space. And so what I hope to do is kind of shorten that journey for you, okay? But a lot of people are going to give you tactics and strategies or coins, and I've done some of that things of like what to buy or what to invest in, when, you know, some things to make money. But I think one of the biggest things missing is mindset, okay? And that will not only benefit you obviously here when making a transition into crypto. And when I say transition, that doesn't even mean fully into crypto. It just means that you're dipping your toe in, okay? You're trying to figure it out, and it's not easy, okay? There are a lot of variables, a lot of things that seem foreign and scary. So mindset is so important to do this. And I want to cover two things that I actually came across. And shout out to Think Media. If you guys haven't checked out their channel, it's amazing. It's the content that they put out, and some of the stuff they were covering today was actually with respect to being a YouTuber and putting videos out. But I want to show how that applies actually to the crypto space. All right. So let's get right into Canva's whiteboard here. Now I was hoping I could do some scribbles and some freehand thing. It doesn't seem like I can. So we'll make it work, all right? First things first here is this observe part, okay? Now, observe versus practice. Now, the individual who was talking about this was, again, talking about YouTube and how it's easy to consume content, and when you observe things, it's different. It's a different progression or lack of progression versus when you're in practice. All right, and so let's minimize myself here, and I'm gonna zoom in here. All right, now you guys can see this pretty clearly here, the observe versus practice. But how is this relevant to the crypto space? You can read every article, you can YouTube a bunch of influencers, you can be on Twitter or any other social media platform and just consume. I did that initially. That's what I was doing as well. But the real progress, if you guys can see the bottom here, the bottom line graph or bar graph, is the practice part. So you see how there's a small little bar, and then it kind of incrementally grows, and that's only through doing and practicing. That's it. Okay, nothing can beat actual doing. And so I've kind of, for my own personal mentality, I've come up with action equals education. I was always the consumer. And very, I won't say rarely, but more on the rare spectrum, was I the one putting things into practice and learning from that. I thought I had to know all the X's and O's, you know, dot all my I's, cross all my T's before I took action. And that was more in the observe category, which is up here. And really, it's just it's a horizontal move. You're not making any progress. The one thing I would change here in practice is sometimes the graph doesn't look like this. Sometimes it's up 1, down 2, up 1, down 3, but over time the bar seems to be going up. All right, so it's not a linear. I know it's a very simplified version of progress, but the overarching theme here is that when you put things into practice, when you're learning, when you're actually, you know, for this particular space, invested in it. And I don't mean just time-wise, but skin in the game with capital. Very small amount, whatever you can afford to play with. that's when you really start to pick up practices and understand things in crypto. You can read the Bitcoin white paper. I don't understand a lot of it. I mean, that's some heavy mathematics involved. But understanding that there is a white paper, looking at it and seeing that, wow, this is really a mathematic-based concept, not just something, out of thin air, was a revelation. And then once I purchased some and then purchased some ETH and then down the rabbit hole I went, you start to really grasp some of the things that are happening. Now, my advice to anyone who's watching this who has not made the jump, you're too busy, whatever the case may be, is buy Bitcoin. That's what I would do if I was starting off again. Buy a little bit of Bitcoin and then you really start to get a feel for it. Okay, don't start jumping into the next coin you think is going to gain 1,000x or 1,500x or whatever the case is. Bitcoin and ETH are really a good place to start, and then get a feel for just transitioning from one wallet to the next, or just holding it and seeing what that means for you versus holding, cash in the bank. So that's number one, is observing or consuming, in this case, just content versus actually being in the space and playing. They're very different. And the progression, where I am now, I started in 2020 and invested a little bit, but over the last year, where I was a year ago versus where I am now, I mean, they're just light years apart. And that's mainly because of the practice that I've put in. And if you have 20 minutes of your day or 15 minutes or even 10 minutes, picking something, investing a little bit of what you can and playing with certain things, that's going to get you more than sitting there and reading content for 3 hours. So I really wanted to highlight that first and foremost. Okay. So the next thing, and this one really speaks to me, and I call it scary versus capitalized scary. And there's an acronym here of comes out. It sounds like fear, FEAR, but it's actually false expectations appearing real. First time I ever heard of that was from Dan Pena. All right, and it really hit home for me what that means. And if you look at this here, all right, is that this is what everyone thinks it is. This is how we all look at it, including myself. When you look at from where you are to maybe what you consider progression, or maybe your end goal, which is up here, those are a lot of steps involved. And the steps look really large. So you're like, man, this is really, really scary. I don't want to do this. But then the real scary part is actually the bottom one. And if you see here, you guys can actually see that this was from a YouTube clip right here that I actually captioned. I couldn't get rid of it. But the real scary part is actually being here now at this point, at the first step, and a year later being at the very same step. So when I talk about it's, in the last year and a half, where I am is a significant difference. If I was to be in the same spot today as I was a year ago, that would be much more scary than looking at last year and saying, how far do I have to go? So part of this, again, is practice. So each of these steps up the stairs is an opportunity to practice and takes you further up the stairs. And you don't even know you're progressing until 6 months in, 9 months in, 12 months in, and you look back and you're like, man, I've really come a long way. And so it's just those incremental gains or incremental work that you put in. Again, that could be 10 minutes. It could be 15 minutes. It could literally be 5 minutes just to get your feet wet and the momentum going. So, and so that's why the false expectations appearing real. So things that that we think, oh my God, I have to do all these things in order to understand. Or look at that guy over there or that girl over there. They know so much, I can never know that. So these are our false expectations that we actually have to know what they know, or it takes as many steps as we think it is to get somewhere when they're not real. You could be someone who takes, puts in some time and skips over 4 steps. You could be. You could be someone where it takes 15 steps to finally get to where you want. You won't know until you try it. And when you start to try it, you understand that it's just a process like anything else. If you are, whatever industry you are in now, you weren't born with the knowledge to do what you do. It took time. And so here it's no different. But you got to put in some work to understand it. Dismissing it outright is not going to get you anywhere. So look, again, I really think this is important to stress because so many of us focus on strategies and tactics and not really what is behind all of that, which is the mindset, the approach. And if we can dial that in, it makes execution on those tactics and the strategies, one, it makes it easier to do. I should say simpler. It's not easy, but simpler to do. But number two, which may be even more important, is sustainability. How long can you stay in the mode of I need to continue to practice? And that comes from a mindset. If you already have that growth mindset where you're like, hey, look, this is a process. This is not I need to get to a certain level and then I call it quits. And when you just think it's a process, it's an ever evolving industry and market, you just start to learn. And you know, what do they say? That the more you know, the more you know you don't, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And that's how it goes. And you got to be okay with that. But the point is just to increase the knowledge through action consistently over time. That's it. Whether that's daily for you, weekly for you, you know, I would recommend daily, even small bits, but you got to find something, but it has to be consistent and there has to be a progression in that work. And number three, there's got to be skin in the game, have some action involved, not just reading. So I really wanted to highlight this. I hope you guys found value in this. Understand that it is a process. The mindset is what dictates everything around it. And whether you're talking about crypto investing or the stock market or real estate, there is a learning curve. And crypto even more so because it seems foreign and the speed of change is much quicker than the other two. But all it is just being in the game and being okay with not knowing everything. And maybe never get, and you'll never get to a point where you know everything. There are people in this space since 2010 who don't know everything and can't. That's okay. That's actually exciting. There's always something new to learn. There's always something new to practice. And just, you know, discuss with the community. So, guys, I hope you found this video valuable. I hope you go put what I'm talking about into practice. That's the important part. If you found value, hit the like button, subscribe. I really appreciate it. And guys, I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.